What happens when the person you trust the most betrays you in the worst possible way? In this gripping and emotionally intense story, an anonymous woman shares the secret life she began after discovering that her husband was having an affair with her own best friend. Instead of confrontation, anger, or revenge in the traditional sense, she chose silence, and a path no one could have imagined. Told through the eyes of a mysterious narrator who listened to her shocking confession, this mature and deeply layered story explores betrayal, secrecy, emotional transformation, and the hidden lives people create when their world falls apart. As the truth unfolds chapter by chapter, you'll witness how one painful discovery turned into a dangerous game of secrets, power, and unexpected freedom. If you enjoy dramatic storytelling filled with emotional twists, complicated relationships, and dark human truths, this story will keep you hooked until the very end. I never expected that night to change the way I saw marriage, loyalty, and even love itself. It started like many other quiet evenings. Rain tapped gently against my apartment windows while the city outside slowly fell asleep. I was halfway through a glass of whiskey when my phone buzzed. The message came from someone whose name wasn't saved in my contacts. It simply read, "I need to talk to someone who doesn't know me." Normally, I would have ignored a message like that. But something about the words felt heavy, desperate even. So I replied, "Who is this?" A few minutes passed before the response came. "It doesn't matter who I am. I just need someone to hear my story." That was the first moment I realized the person on the other side of the conversation was a woman. Her writing carried emotion, controlled but fragile. I told her she could talk if she wanted. And then the truth began to pour out. Her story started with a marriage that looked perfect from the outside. She and her husband had been together for 8 years. They owned a house, shared friends, and built what everyone believed was a stable life. But perfection, as she explained, is often just a performance. She said the cracks started small. Late nights at work. Phone calls taken outside. A sudden need for privacy that had never existed before. At first she blamed herself. Maybe she wasn't attentive enough. Maybe she had become boring. Maybe marriage had simply changed them both. But one evening, everything changed. Her husband had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he went to shower. She wasn't the type who snooped. In fact, she had always believed trust meant never needing to check. But the phone lit up. And the message appeared. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." The name attached to the message made her stomach drop. It was her best friend. The woman who had stood beside her at their wedding. The woman who had shared secrets, laughter, and years of friendship. She told me she didn't scream. She didn't cry. Instead, she simply sat there, staring at the glowing screen while the world she thought she knew quietly collapsed around her. She read more messages. More proof. More betrayal. Every text painted a clearer picture of what had been happening behind her back for months. Her husband. Her best friend. Together. But what shocked me most was what she said next. I never confronted him. I paused before typing my response. Why not? Her answer came slowly. Because that night, something inside me changed. That was when I realized this story wasn't about revenge in the way most people imagine. It was about something far more complicated. And far more dangerous. Most people expect betrayal to explode like a bomb. Arguments. Screaming. Broken plates and slammed doors. But she said her reaction was the opposite. She became quiet. Dangerously quiet. After reading the messages, she placed the phone exactly where she found it and poured herself a glass of wine. By the time her husband walked back into the kitchen, towel draped over his shoulders, she was sitting calmly at the table. He kissed her on the forehead like he always did. Asked how her day had been. She smiled and told him it was fine. And just like that, the performance continued. But now she was watching everything. Every late-night text. Every sudden business meeting. Every lie. She noticed details she had once ignored. The way he dressed more carefully before certain nights out. The way he smiled at his phone when he thought she wasn't looking. And she noticed something else. Her best friend still visited the house. Still hugged her. Still laughed across the dinner table. The betrayal wasn't just secret. It was happening right in front of her. I realized something, she told me in one message. They thought I was stupid. That realization changed everything. Instead of confronting them, she began observing them like a scientist studying a strange experiment. She paid attention to their body language. Their subtle glances. Their careful distance when others were around. It became a twisted game. And she played her role perfectly. But while she watched them, something unexpected started happening inside her. The anger didn't explode. It slowly transformed. Into something colder. Something calculating. She said one night, while lying beside her sleeping husband, she asked herself a question that scared her. If he can betray me so easily, why should I keep being the loyal one? That thought opened a door she had never considered before. At first, it was just curiosity. A quiet rebellion forming in her mind. She began going out more often with coworkers. Staying late after work. Spending time in places where nobody knew her marriage or her life. For the first time in years, she felt invisible. Free. And one evening, sitting alone at a small bar across the city, a stranger sat beside her and asked a simple question. Is this seat taken? She told him no. What happened next, she said, was the moment her life split into two separate paths. The woman she had been before the betrayal. And the woman she became afterward. The stranger at the bar didn't know her name. And she liked it that way. She told me she gave him a fake one. Something simple. Something forgettable. They talked for hours. Not about marriage. Not about betrayal. Just about ordinary things. Work. Music. Movies. It felt strange to sit across from someone who saw her as nothing more than a woman enjoying a drink on a quiet evening. No expectations. No history. No lies. When he asked if she wanted to grab dinner somewhere nearby, she hesitated for only a few seconds. Then she said yes. She told me something during that part of the story that stuck with me. I wasn't doing it for revenge. At least, not at first. She simply wanted to feel something again. Something real. Dinner turned into a walk through dimly lit streets. The walk turned into laughter. And by the time he walked her to her car, the tension between them had become undeniable. He leaned closer. She didn't stop him. Their first kiss happened under a streetlight, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city. And for the first time since discovering her husband's betrayal, she felt powerful. Not broken. Not abandoned. Powerful. But what surprised her most was the lack of guilt. She had expected to feel something heavy afterward. Shame. Regret. Fear. Instead, she felt calm. Almost peaceful. When she returned home that night, her husband was asleep on the couch with the television still glowing. She stepped over his legs and went upstairs without saying a word. As she lay in bed, she realized something strange. The woman who had once believed marriage was sacred was slowly disappearing. In her place was someone new. Someone who understood secrets. Someone who knew how easily trust could be broken. And if the world had already betrayed her, why should she be the only one playing by the rules? That night was only the beginning. Because once she crossed that line, she discovered how easy it was to cross it again. And again. Months passed. Her husband and best friend continued their secret affair, believing they were clever enough to hide it. But what they never realized was that she had built an entirely different life behind their backs. She had learned the art of disappearing. Work trips that didn't exist. Girls' nights that were simply convenient excuses. Small lies that blended perfectly into her routine. The stranger from the bar wasn't the only man she met. There were others. Some were brief encounters that lasted only a night. Others stayed longer. But none of them knew her real identity. And that was the way she wanted it. Every time she walked into a new place, she could become someone else. A different name. A different story. A different woman. She told me she didn't feel like she was cheating. Not really. In her mind, the marriage had already ended the night she read those messages. What remained was simply an illusion they all continued to perform. But one moment nearly changed everything. Her husband's best friend almost recognized her one night at a restaurant across town. She had been sitting with a man nearly 15 years older than her, laughing over dinner when she noticed the familiar face across the room. Her heart stopped. But he didn't approach. He only glanced once, then returned to his conversation. She left immediately. That night she realized how dangerous her double life had become. Yet instead of stopping, she became more careful, more strategic. And strangely enough, she began enjoying the thrill of it all. The secret. The risk. The control. Because for the first time since her betrayal, she wasn't the victim anymore. She was the one writing the rules. When she finally finished telling her story, I stared at the phone screen for a long time. Her final message appeared a few minutes later. You're probably wondering why I told you all this. I admitted that I was. After hours of confession, I still didn't know her name. I didn't know where she lived. I didn't know anything about her life beyond the fragments she had shared. She had carefully removed every detail that could reveal her identity. And that was intentional. Her answer came slowly. Because no one knows the truth about me. Her husband still believed he was living a normal married life. Her best friend still pretended to care about her. And the men she met during her secret adventures only knew the versions of her she allowed them to see. I asked her something then. Do you still love your husband? The typing bubble appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, her reply came. I don't know anymore. She said she sometimes looked at him and wondered if he would feel the same shock she felt if he ever discovered her secrets. If he knew how far she had gone. If he knew how many lies now lived between them. But she had no plans to confess. No plans to leave. At least not yet. Her final message that night stayed with me longer than the rest. People think betrayal breaks you, she wrote. But sometimes, it creates someone new. Then she sent one last line before disappearing completely. And the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody suspects. After that, she never messaged again. I still don't know who she is. But somewhere out there, a woman is living two completely different lives. And the man who betrayed her still has no idea what he created. Disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and storytelling purposes. While it may contain themes inspired by real-life experiences and human relationships, the characters, events, and situations in this story are entirely fictional. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real-life events is purely coincidental. This content is intended for a mature audience due to its exploration of complex relationship issues, emotional conflict, and adult themes. Viewer discretion is advised. Thank you for taking the time to experience this intense and unforgettable story. Tales like this remind us that behind every relationship there may be hidden emotions, untold secrets, and choices that change lives forever. If this story kept you engaged, surprised you, or made you reflect on the complexities of trust and betrayal, make sure to stay connected for more powerful storytelling like this. There are many more gripping stories, dramatic confessions, and unforgettable characters waiting to be discovered. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next story that might shock you, move you, or completely change the way you see human relationships.